All right, all right, all right, all right. Yay! Finally, we're all together here, my dear friends. I still can hear this music. I believe we don't need it anymore. Guys, hello, hello, hello. I'm not sure if you can hear music too. Oh no, it's because my, tab is open. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. So we're getting started. Angular Global Summit 2023, Volume 2, because this is the second event this year. And we are all together. I'm so happy to invite here my friends and my team. I can say my family now is Paul. Hey, Paul, and
good morning.
Sia. Hey, Sia. How are you people?
Hi, everyone.
Doing good.
Yeah.
Doing good.
Great.
I'm so excited because I believe this is kind of fifth or fifth event for Angular community, and I'm so happy. Today we have more than 1,000 registrations on this particular event. I mean, new registrations. Overall, we have almost 15,000 developers in this community around this Angular framework. So I'm so happy. I'm so proud to be one of leading events on the event. So because we do it every 6 months, we wait 6 months, we scan the landscape, we communicate with influencers, with different speakers, and then we give this update on the technology. The next 6 months, a new update, and that's how we do it, because our mission is to find the most interesting use cases and best practices, all this innovation delivered to you, to your home, without need to buy tickets, go to expensive conferences. Like I admire conferences, nothing against them, but it's not the optimal way to get knowledge or updates. Offline conferences are more for fun or networking, you know what I mean. Anyway, happy to meet you, happy to welcome you, and as always, this is our tradition. Just write us in chat. Where are you from? Yeah, I see people who like know what's going on, how it works here. So I see, hello from India, hello from Switzerland, and more. I'm in Nice right now, and Paul, I believe, and Sia in Kiev, because we're Ukrainian team. All right, Paul, tell us more about about what's up, what's going on.
Glad to see everyone. Happy to have everyone who joined us for today. Yeah, and we're excited to kickstart this new part of Angular. I would say new Angular development. Maybe I would even say new Angular development reality, because we have lots of new stuff going on, lots of new things since we had this event in this spring, because we have some updates to the renderer and everything. So lots of interesting things, and we believe that this smaller event would kickstart the new discussions and everything that's everything that is great that came to us with the new version of Angular. And we just wanted to extend our gratitude to everyone who joined us, everyone who contributed to this event, to everyone who submitted their CFPs, who submitted their talks, to our program committee who helped us to vote for those talks, who helped us with the I would say with defining the latest and greatest things for Angular and what's new in the version 16 and beyond that for the 2024. And since I still have the mic, I wanted to invite everyone who wants to join our program committees, to join our advisory board. So if you would like to help us with our upcoming events such as React.js, Node.js, maybe QA or DevOps, or maybe software architecture, we will be sending our invites to our community, and we will have those emails, and we will have sort of like a call for speakers sort of form, and you will be able to fill in those forms and basically join the community and join the content creation.
Absolutely, and even easier, I just shared my LinkedIn link in this chat. So if you, at some point, you feel like you want to be the part of this community, you want to be part of this, content movement and technology innovation movement, just ping me saying, Ed, I'm in on Python, or I'm in on quality assurance, or anything else, and we'll add you to our work groups, and we'll rock on. So Ukraine in the house, Bogdan says. Hello from Turkey. Hello from Romania. Yeah. And more people from Dublin, from Albania, Quebec, Canada, India, Poland, Netherlands, Greece. Wow, like all around the world. And I mean, it's so exciting. Feel free. do not hesitate to share your socials on this chat, because this chat is actually for that, for communication, for new friends. And what I usually do on every conference, I open this website of the conference, the page, I mean, and I click every speaker and I add them to my network, because these are top people of the industry and I want to follow them. I don't want to lose any updates from them and everything. So that's how I expand my network and build my feed. So I encourage you to do the same. What's next? Sia, tell us more about this event. What to expect, because we have some minutes more.
Yes, so we have today's event. The first day is today. We pay attention to our junior community members. So we have 5 speakers for you, and tomorrow we will have more. They will share talks on reactive forms performance with NGRX, meta frameworks in action with AnalogJs, software design patterns, tips and tricks for standalone component future, and many more. Also, they will join us for a live Q&A session, so do not hesitate to type your questions in the chat, because they will be definitely answered by our experts. And it was a pleasure to work with such a great community, and
Awesome.
many more events to come, so welcome.
Right, and we have hello from Prague, Czech Republic, of course, Czech Republic. Hey, Tomasz. And Rodriguez says super, okay, and some LinkedIn link there in the chat. I love it. So yeah, what else? Yeah, Paul, I know you have something to tell us, right? Or you not?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind everyone that right now, as usually for every conference that we have special discounts if you wanted to join the senior track, but for some reason I didn't have time to do this. We'll have special promos. We'll have special discounts today for the pro track tomorrow, and also we will have special discounts for the upcoming events. So look for those QR codes. Look for those special promotions and special promo codes during the conference. We will have those, and we will have special offers for our React Summit, for our UI UX, for our QA Summit, and if you are if maybe someone on your team wants to attend and you have like bigger teams, don't hesitate to send me an email. I'll post my email in the chat also. But it's pretty simple. It's like pp, like my first and last name, like pp@geekle.us. Just shoot me an email, and I'll hook you up for the best prices. And yeah, I guess.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. And now we're working on, as mentioned, React Global Summit, UI UX Global Summit. What else? QA, and also work on. We're only starting on Flutter. We only starting on Node.js. So if you want to be the part of program committee, or you want to contribute in any type, I mean, as a speaker, as a moderator, any type, just let us know. It's about community. The last thing, I believe, I want to mention that the new program from Geekle, kind of G Digest, is coming up. So once a month, we're going to make kind of recap of what happened during the months in this community. What brilliant talks. Top 5 talks on architecture, top 5 talks on engineering, top 5 talks on soft skills and leadership. And you don't have to watch all these events and spend tens of hours or something. You just have this gist, the best talks that really necessary to listen to any engineer or architect or senior developer. That's actually all. I believe that's it. And I think we're going to start. Am I right? So today is going to be 2 blocks. Yeah, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Sia, for having this time with us. And I will be moderating the first block. Yeah, first block and first speaker is Luciano Murruni. We'll be presenting about meta frameworks in action with AnalogJs. Look, I feel like meta frameworks is something kind of next step of frameworks. I don't know. What do you think about it? What do you feel? Please let us know in chat. Do you have any experience with it, or are you interested in that, or something like that? What do you think about meta frameworks? And so Luciano is a front-end lead architect, so I think he has something to share with us. And without further talks, let's get it started. Let's do it. First speaker.
Hello, everyone. I'm really happy to be on the stage today, and I'm going to talk about how to build a performant and scalable blog. So in this talk, you learn about Analog, and we will create a simple blog. But before starting with the talk, let's introduce myself. My name is Luciano Murruni. I'm working at Content.it as a tech lead and community manager. I'm based in Rome, and also I draw a front-end community, and we organize online and in-person meetups. So if you're around Rome, join us and spend a dinner with a lot of passionate developers. Let's talk about meta frameworks before to go more in deep with Analog. So meta frameworks have become popular in recent years, and I want to provide you some information with some key points that you have to consider before going more in deep with a simple question: why do I need a meta framework for my website or web page? So meta frameworks is a higher level framework that provides a set of abstraction tools built on top of another framework or platform. It provides a set of additional features tools to make building complex applications easier and more efficient. We can start with some question. So you need to define this before start. So SEO could be important for my business. I think SEO is crucial. It makes your website more visible, and that means more traffic and more opportunities to convert prospect to customer. So meta frameworks can improve this aspect for your website. And what about performance? Performance is all about making website fast, including making slow process seems fast. So website performance measures the responsiveness of your website and how quickly it loads offering insight. And last point could be the routing. So traditional websites use server-side routing. The client sends a request to a server for a resource. The server responds with that resource. So the important evidence is that each page will typically involve a new request to the server. In a normal app, you will configure the routing module, declare routes, and which component has a particular routes. And using meta framework, you will use a file layout that automatically creates the route and ties to the component. So, but not least, is the rendering method. Maybe you heard about SSR and SSG, so server-side rendering and static site generation, and both improve the loading time when compared to the rendering on the client side. That's because SSR collects all the data without waiting for the browser to make such request, and SSG goes even further and collecting all the data as it builds the application. So on the right, you have some popular meta frameworks like Quick, Meteor, Astro, SvelteKit, Next, and Next. And today, of course, we are going to talk about Analog. Analog comes with a lot of features and integration. File-based routing that automatically creates new route content, Markdown support that easily add content to the page, and Server API for getting content dynamically using your services like Firebase or GraphQL. And another cool thing is the SSRS and SSG support at build phase. The integration of the Angular CLI and the NX can enhance your dev experience for your web application. And last integration that I want to mention today is the plugin with Astro. So if you want to play with this cool technology today, you can do it also inside Analog. Analog support the file system based routing on top of the Angular router. Routers are defined using folder and files in the app pages folder. Only files that ending with the .page.ts are collected and used to build the set of routes. With the file system routing, you can create the index route of your blog, and you can create static route like about page or dynamic routes or marketing routes. So as you can see, we have just a few lines of code using the standalone syntax for the new component in Angular. And here we are going to create just the index.page, but we can create different type of routing. So not only index route, we can create static routes, as I said before, for marketing or the about page, classic about page. We can create dynamic routes for the blogs or to show the products gallery of to our customer. We can create also some layout routes to guarantee the same experience to the customer or visitor, and of course we can catch all routes or mix it inside our application. So for example, I want to show you how to create some static routes. So we can create the about page. I want to show you how we can create some static routes. We can add the about page, just adding the about.page.ts to our file system. And in this case, we have the component always using the standalone syntax. And this is totally automatic created by Analog. And we can add and nest files in two different ways, because we can create the about team page.ts if we want. Okay, for example, we can create our static routes. Creating static routes, it's just to add about page.ts to our file system, and automatically Analog add it in our routing. But what if we want to create some nested part? Analog works in two different. Okay, Analog give you two different ways to do it. So you can create the /about/team page or about.team.page.ts to reach the same results. Another cool thing is the dynamic routes. Dynamic routes has the route paramap object to get the product ID in this case and work with it. So always using the standalone components, we can use the wildcard in the name of the file with the product ID and use it using with the activated route injection and getting the parameter and use it with the product ID in a simple way. So another cool thing is the routing metadata. So we talk about the CEO enhancement for our web page, and one of the cool things that you can do with Meta Framework is to dynamically add some properties to our HTML5. So this additional metadata will be generated directly from the route config for each route and can be done using the route meta type. As you can see, we are going to create a new custom route meta using the route meta type, and inside the object we are going to specify all the information that we want to put directly in our page. We already talked about Markdown support. So Markdown is a lightweight markup language. We can add a lot of contents inside our blog just editing our Markdown, and it's really easy to create some content because just adding some text to our file about.md, we are going to create new pages directly. Really cool stuff. The last point is the API routes. As I said before, each website can get some content from a database, for example, and if you want to add dynamic content to your page, you can generate your API routes, connect with your preferred services, and add more dynamic interaction to your blog page. All right, let's start with the demo. So firstly, I want to start the demo showing you how to start a new project. This is the official website of Analog. So here we have the main functionality that we have inside the Analog. We have the documentation. So inside the documentation you have the getting starting, and running this simple command you are going to create a local environment using Analog, and after the completion we are going to install the npm package, and later on we are able to run the local server. So we have the server up and running in our local environment using localhost in your browser. So inside the documentation you have also some core concepts like the routing, how it works, how we can use the content routes, the route metadata, and here you are going to add also some meta information to the page for SEO, and also you can learn how we can deploy our application. But let's go more in deep with the application and the demo. So actually I have created a simple application. It's quite easy. So I have just an index page with some information. I'm using a standalone components. I have had some HTML and nothing else on it. So what happened if I click on about? Actually we get a blank page. So we want to avoid to give this behavior to our customers. So what I'm going to do now is to create a new file on it. So the new file is a wildcard mainly. So for .404.md, I'm going to add some content on it. Okay, I'm at the not found page. I'm going to save it, and if I'm clicking on about page, now we get a not found page. So really easy to have the powerful of the file system routing without any configuration for make it works. now we are going to create our about.md file. So now we want to create the about page. So really easy to create the about page also, and any content using the markdown. Okay, next we are going to create our blog page. So Analog use markdown files, and we can also use markdown files in combination with root components to display content. And to create custom page for a blog post, Analog provides built-in components. Let's see how. We want to create our blog. We have our index.page, and here we have also the blog page. So the blog page has a router outlet, nothing else, just the redirect for the visitors that want to go in the blog. And index.page is used just to list our blog posts. So we are going to load all the content using the inject content files, and we are going to have an ng4 for all of them. Okay, so at this point, what we need to do is to create a new file with a wildcard, a new wildcard. And here we are going to use the slug wildcard. So in this way, all the posts load the same page and the same design. So for our slug page, we need to load just the content that we want to show, filtered by the slug. So here we have the post attributes. We have always the inject content as the index page instead of the index content files. So here we want just the content. Analog provide these methods for us. And here we are going to just show the title and content to our visitor. So that's it. Let's check if it works. So we have the blog link in our page, our blog. That's it. We have the list of our posts. If I click on it, I have my first post. If I go back and click on second post, I have my second post. And yeah, this is really cool. So another things that I want to show you is how we can configure the Byte ecosystem to use Analog and to generate a static website for enhanced performance and to pre-rendering routes for our blog. So in this way, we are going to reduce the loading time of the page because we are going to pre-render it, and at build phase, we're going to deploy just the HTML file. So all the static files will be generated. Yeah, that's it with the demo. Okay, we will see how to create a blog with Analog, how to add some pages to our blog, like a blog page and blog post. And now I want to show you how easy it is to deploy in a simple provider with no configuration like Vercel the code base. So you can deploy it in your preferred services, but now we are going to see how easy it is to deploy on Vercel. So let's log in with our GitHub account. We can search about our project, and clicking on import, I'm going to set up our project. Just I want to override this folder. I'm going to add this client and click on deploy. So in less than 1 minute, we are going to have our live page. It's public, of course. All of these providers could be better configured for loading time and performance for your application. And yeah, of course, you can create also some dev experience with your collaboration, because tool like Vercel enables the creation of the branching strategy and the deploy to a virtual page, to a virtual server, without override the production environment. So let's check the build logs. So actually we have the installation of Node.js that we need. We have all the command that we need to run. So the ng-build, the static file that will be generated, and also the pre-rendering page. So that's it. Our website is up and running, and now it's also accessible on the web. So that's really cool. If I click on the web link, we're going to load our application, and of course our page is going to be shown. My first post, yeah, the second post, 404 page. Yes, everything works fine. So next, I want to leave you some resources. We have covered a lot of cool features of Analog, and even if Analog is quite new, it's growing a lot thanks to Brandon Roberts and all the contributors of the project. You know, it's Angular, and you can use all the cool stuff that you use every day. So Analog is easy to use. You can start a new project in a few minutes and create a blog in 10 minutes, more or less. Angular team, with the latest release, has shown that it puts a lot of focus on performance and the dev experience for the day-by-day users. The future of meta frameworks looks promising, so let's play with it and contribute to the project by sharing your ideas and troubles. Join also to the Discord channel for support and stay updated about the news and latest release. Thank you.
Yeah, that was actually nice. It was interesting. Done this. I mean, this performance improvements using these meta frameworks with these questions, dynamic page or a static page and routes. I loved it. We really need to dig more in this meta framework thing. Okay, just reminding you, write your comments in chat and questions, because when you write where I'm from in the chat, I really love it and it encourages me. But your questions really encourage speaker about his topic, and that's actually great. The next speaker is from IBM. We'll be presenting about reactive forms performance with NGRX. Something interesting, reactive forms. Yeah. Gustavo Henrique do Espirito Santo, and his time is about to begin. Let's listen to this talk and pay attention to this.
Hey there, and today I want to show you more about performance optimization, reactive programming with Angular and how NGRX and reactive forms can help us to create a better user experience application. And of course, some common things between them. So, who am I? I'm Gustavo, an application developer at IBM here in Brazil, or enthusiast, and I'm really like performance. So if you want to contact me anyway, this is my LinkedIn profile. If you want to send in a message over there, you're always be welcome. And if you want to prefer sending a message by email, you can send me a message that this is my email address. We'll always be welcome again. Let's dive in. So I think a good way to introduce this topic is answering this kind of a question. Why performance optimization is important in web development? I think there's several ways around the internet answer that, but today I brought you some interesting reasons. The first one, reduce data cost. Basically, is no websites can, of course, frustrate some users that has unlimited data plans and fast load web pages consume less data, of course, and bandwidth. It's good for us to boost search engine ranking. I think, as we already know, a faster web page can likely appear higher in search results. And competitiveness. Basically, slow websites may drive users to competitors with better performance. And sustainability, a good website, a good design websites can, of course, be more energy efficient and increase engagement. Like a happy user can increase engagement to your website, to your web application with Angular. So Angular can help you to create a better user experience application, use reactive programming. And there's a several ways to use reactive programming, but when I'm always talking about reactive programming, Angular involves using the NGRX. Like RxJS is a library that helps us to create a reactive programming application. And if you create some application if they were based on reactive principles, probably you can create a more responsive, efficient, scalable web application. Another hobby you're using event-driven lazy evaluation, of course, with system management, but the idea is that. And there's several ways to use RxJS in Angular applications, but the main ones are HTTP requests. You can use RxJS to make HTTP calls and map the return data and transform the data, like use map and filter to render response more efficiently. And of course, we can use reactive forms, and we'll be check that out pretty soon about performance to productivity and to our web application use reactive forms. But you can use reactive forms to create some input validations and to handle it input data. Event driven, you can manage using interactions such as button click or mouse events. You can handle with this kind of events. Cache and data transformation, when you use operators like switch map, you can cache and transform data, of course improving the efficient of data retrieval. And animation, with RxJS, you can use to create animation, to create some sequence and control time transition. And of course, state management, libraries like NGRX, you can, that was built in with reactive principles. You can create some context on your application, like station management. And I wanted to point out two of them today. Today, I want to talk about exactly about reactive forms and state management. So probably you already have used it and heard about reactive forms, but do you know about the advantages for performance and productivity? So before I show you the advantages, I want to show how exactly reactive forms work. Basically, you can create some direct connection to gain access to the form control container API using form control directive. So you in your class you have some instance of form control, form group, and you can create some connection. Let's take a look at an example. As you can see, profile data component has a form group instance, and inside this instance you can have some lines of code, the constructor of your class is first name, last name as a new form control. And you can use it, of course, you can bind this in your template file in your HTML. So you can get, of course, the profile form as a form group, and you can gain access to the controls like first name and last name. And it's, of course, as a silver advantage for us. And the first one is reduce unnecessary DOM manipulation, because form controls are directly bound to the module, and Angular can optimize how it's updated DOM, reducing the numbers of overflow, and of course, it creates a smoother user experience and better performance. Complex form validation, you can handle with complex validation scenarios, of course, including asynchronous validation tasks. And consistency and predictable, they are too. Reactive forms basically provide a straightforward path to test because you are assured that your data is consistency and predictable. When requests, only consumers of the streams had access to manipulate the data safely. Immutable stage, like reactive forms use explicit and immutable approach to manage the stage. Like each change up to the form stage within a new stage, which maintain the integrity of the module between chains. And observing streams, reactive forms are built around observable streams, where form inputs and value are provided as streams of data. And of course, you can access synchronous. NGRX, I think in this moment you don't need to dive in category concepts about NGRX. What is store? What is infected action selectors, effects? We don't need to know about this in this moment. We'll just need to know what is NGRX and how it can help us to create a reactive application. So NGRX is a framework for building reactive application based on reactive principles. So imagine that you have now application without using NGRX, and you had services and you had another services, outside services, and you got a list of products, and you got a list of users, and it's hard to follow how data is moving through your application. So NGRX can easily manage all of this within one place called store. So of course, NGRX can bring to us some advantages. And the first one is consistency and centralization. Basically, if you are using NGRX, you want to manage and share data across multiple components. And you can centralize the stage in your application global start to share the data throughout your application. Immutable stage, like reactive forms, it means that your state remains unchangeable, your state keep the same. Predict data flow. The data flow of our NGRX is pretty simple. Basically, actions are dispatched, stage is updated in reducers, and selectors retrieve the data. I mean, it's simple to understand the flow and maintain the flow. And of course, testing and debugging. NGRX provide a lot of tools to test and debug to our application. And the final question is, can I combine them? Can I, for example, hold an reactive form stage in global store using NGRX, for example, I have application, and in my application, I needed to share the same stage of a form across multiple components throughout my application in the same stage of forms. I mean, this answer for this question is pretty simple. We don't need to use a reactive form stage into global store using NGRX, because there's a lot of similarities between store and stage. As I said before, they are predictable, they are immutable, and of course, the stage, the forms already have a stage. and you don't need to replicate the state to another stage. So let's take a look at an example. Imagine that you have a user, and the users need to fill some form. And to fill the form, the users go to the name routes. In the name route, users need to provide an input, the first name and the last name. So when the user click on the button, the user goes to the address page, the address component route. And in this component, the user can see the previous information, so they can see the first name and the last name. And of course, they needed to provide the user address and the postal code too. So there's two other inputs in this component. And then users go to review component. And the review component, the users users can see all previous information. So as you can see, we pass it through three the reference component. And of course, you need the same stencil form. In exactly, the stencil forms keep the same across multiple components. How? Using control container. As you can see, when I bind the form in HTML template, I create some connections and get access to control container. And of course, I can filter down in component tree, in this case, auto-outlet, and pass in each component the parent state, the parent stencil form. So for example, in address in a review, I had the instance of name form. I had the instance of the previous forms of the parent form. So in this case, I extension the form group in app component, and others components in a component tree can see the same instance of the parent of the form from the app component. So you don't need to use NGRX holding a state of form to use across multiple components. You can use a control container to work pretty well to us. So I hope you enjoy. I hope you understood the content about how exactly is reactive programming and common things between forms and common things between NGRX, and the answer for this question that you don't need to use NGRX and reactive forms to share the data across multiple components in your application. You just needed to use NGRX for other things, and reactive forms already have a state. So basically, in conclusion, it's important to recognize that to improve your application, to create a better user application experience, you just needed to follow the principles of reactive programming. So I hope you enjoy. And again, if you want to send me a message on LinkedIn or by email, don't hesitate. See you later.
All right. That was deep. That was engineering, definitely. So yeah, thank you very much, Gustavo, and we are going to move to our next speaker because we have kind of tight time in here today. Just want to remind you that we have this talk we're facing now is the last one in the free blog. Oh no! I mean, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's holiday free. Sorry, forget it because I used to say it usually. Yeah, without any other talks from my side, let's listen to development based on solid principles. I think solid principles is a thing now, right? Because we hear about the solid on most of our conferences, and community wants to hear about it because it kind of, structurize and balance your developing your architecture, and that's really beneficial history of this interesting solid principles. So let's watch and learn something there.
Hello everyone, this is Franco Gutierrez. Welcome to my presentation, Mastering Software Design with Solid Principles. I'm a software engineer with over 6-7 years of experience, mostly on the front-end side. Now I'm working as a full stack in a fintech company. My experience in the past has been mobile development also, and some backend services. So this one mostly go focused to the UI side, which is the TypeScript area. Now this can be implemented in all the areas, but I just wanted to have a quick demo on TypeScript and how this is being used on the TypeScript side, and how this can be implemented on the, say, some components in the future. Also, if you have a, let's say, an AnalogJs project, you can go ahead and give it some try there. This solid principle apply for all the different languages like Java, or mostly they're all related to OOP. The agenda of today is what they are, what do they aim for, an overview, quick and applying in a real code, and a takeaway. So solid principle, what they are. Solid principles is an acronym described by Robert Martin. For everybody who knows, Robert Martin is a recognized software engineer who brought these acronyms, which stand for 5 principles: single responsibility principle, open close principle, list code substitution principle, interface segregation, dependency inversion. Now, if you want to have a look more about who is Robert Martin, Robert Martin is also known as Uncle Bob, an American software engineer. Also is part of the Agile Manifesto. He wrote a book about how having a clean code. I invite you to read his book, as is one of the main topics of the solid principles area. They aim for improving 3 key aspects of the code: readability, easy to code, and read and understood; maintainability, that can be modified and extended, and is flexible, that fulfill a new purpose. Now, everyone wants to see the code, but first we're gonna dive into some theory, some sentences that's gonna help us to get understand of how they differ of each other. Sometimes it looks like they were combined. It's more get like a main idea, but having this, we're gonna go one by one. We're gonna check these sentences that are gonna help us to get into these principles. So single responsibility principle is a class that should not have one or more, meaning that a class should only have one job. We got the idea, right? So the part of this one is like, if you have a class, let's say something related to the maintenance, or related to a printer component, or related to a house component. So just we want to specify this class for this main purpose, and then try to isolate any kind of lower code in the different classes. Open close principle, what is all about? Objects or entities should be open for extension but closed for modification. We don't want to bring some kind of modification for some classes. So I have this little help with help us to understand what is more about. So a software, in other words, means like a software artifact should be of a sensible, okay, clause for modification, like just having a general overview. If we have like a SendGrid service, for instance, then later on we have like a client that say we don't want to get more SendGrid instant, we want something totally different. We should have some interface for this one that gonna isolate this kind of service instant into a general service. So in the future we don't have to touch this class. We're gonna touch just the interface of this class implementing this section. In the code we're gonna be looking for something protected from change to lower level components. Now, going back to the presentation, list cuff substitution principle what is taught about. So entities should be replaceable with instance of their subtypes without breaking functionality. The main reason of this one, going back to this demo presentation, is like if we have, let's say, one SendGrid email service and one MailChimp service, we can have like an implementation of this service, main implementation, mail service, having different kind of functionality. So by having that, we can call the controller of the class. We're gonna get more into that in short with the demo. But the main idea that I explained the list cup is like we want something looking like this service instead of something like something internal. So in this section, we can see the best injection into our class, making sure we refer identify velocity rating 1 and concrete implementation. And then we call this segment. So now when we call, all of these are really valid points. So we have different kind of classes here. So if we see, we have a main GUM email service, MailChimp email service, and SendGrid email service, and we are passing this to the controller. So if you see the way this is being implemented, we are not touching any kind of code, only on the side of, only outside of our main component. So now the reason of this one, LSP, stands for that principle, because we can pass that email service and have more control of a better clean code. Now going back to the implementation, I know it sounds a kind of complex in this part, but we having a demo later on we can clarify this kind of principle. The integrated segregation principle mentioned that clients should not be forced to depend on method they don't use. So in many cases we see some interfaces having some declaration of methods. So the main reason of this one is trying to isolate those methods in being implemented outside that one that interface. So one of the reasons, going back to this demo, so if we see interface segregation, we can see 3 different users here and also with some operations. So every implementation can have different functionality, right? But if you see, we can have this with operation 1, this with operation 2, operation 3, and then operation 1 have one functionality, and operation 2 can have a different kind of functionality. So we don't want to bring operation 2 into the operation 1 because they're not related. Dependency inversion principle. So higher modules should not depend upon low modules, rather should only depend upon abstraction. So what they're referring is like inside the interfaces, there are a couple of times that we have different kind of, if we see this one, we have an interface that is calling pretty main, but we were referring to concrete pretty main and short email from an abstraction. So we wanted to extract this one and having instead some interface called IMail, because we want to get on a concrete class relying on an abstraction of that one. So in the future, if we want to implement another class, we just don't we won't be touching this kind of code again, just inside the IMail. Now, main component, the data components. Let's see if we can find something here. Let's see if I'm missing something there. So this is a kind of abstraction I will kind of mention, like having a, this is the IMail service I mentioned. So this is being called and not like being called like this way. You see this SendGrid service. So this SendGrid service means like we are just kind of doing a concretion here. We're limiting ourselves to a particular concrete class, so we can be more generic and pass the mail service. This is the reason of the dependency inversion principle, right? And this is more about this info. So now jumping to our code, we have the I have set up a project for this one called employee list. So this is structured with different sections of those principles and with, let's call it error on that one. So if we go to see to the original one, actually if we go to that original one and I call like TCS to compile 0 original and then call employee list TS. So we compile the project on TypeScript to get a JavaScript project. So and then if we run that class generated with this JavaScript now, we can see that we have the contractor. This is the Spectre having Tamara. So it's a list of employees with a contractor as a role. So navigating to this one project, actually I'm gonna open the whole project, try to show how it looks the main project. So these are the issues we're having, right? So this has current responsibility from a class, getting data from an API reason to change. So it has an employee, it has a contract request response, it has issues with the translate text reason to change, probably the file language. Okay, returning back to the employee list section, we have the suitcase, we have our printer code, and then we have our HTTP request right here. And then we are passing the language. The way to solve this is by those kind of issues with the single responsibility. One of the solutions is bringing the printer outside our code. We're still facing some issues here, but just let's focus on the single responsibility. That one of the solutions where we're bringing to the printer of the employee class outside our scope and then triggering some different kind of functionality. So the printer is really simple. It's like a printer class there, and then we're just referring our printer here to bring some data, right? So it has also we can bring this code inside our printer, inside here. Now, the open-close responsibility mentioned, one of the issues that we have is like we have a new account role in our employee list, and we want to bring that account into our role. So basically what referring to this code, what's gonna happen is like the easy way to fix that is adding into run into a suitcase list. So but imagine this is gonna be so long and a suitcase to control. So we can include a kind of employee factory, right? So employer factory can be, let's say, contractor, employee, and then we can have employee contractor with some print class, some translation. We can have our employee abstract class that bring the print coder. The HTTP has been solved, so we isolate the HTTP as well there. So and then the internal employee there. If we look for the accountant that we were having, the accountant can be added right in internal employee there. If we see, we have our role. Our role is called accountant role there, and then accountant role. If you go to the implementation, something like go to can be calling the accountant role factory. So we will have something like this. So we move all the role factory to our abstract class, role factory class, and we add a create section. So if we call that this is one of the let's call it's a factory pattern call. We call that then we pass some kind of a role in this case, and then we declare some different classes. So this role factory, we go to the reference. I will say this is calling the employee factory function to create the employee role. Now this employee role, this comes from a list. So we have this on a list on a DTO. Actually, it's coming from here. It's coming from the API. So we mock that code, API employee list. So we can have here like a different employees that they have different role, like dev, and then we can have an accountant here. Let's say we bring this back comment, and we can say, okay, I just want Andres Gonzalez to be added to our role and to our employee list. Yeah, added to our role. So the way to run this one would be run the app.ts again. Then the TypeScript generated, the JavaScript generated on it one. So we should expect to have the accountant, which is right here, Andres Gonzalez, to that one. So we achieve that goal with the implementation of that principle. And the latest one would say the dependency inversion, with basically it's been covered by using some interfaces on it. I think if we get some time, we can go and have a quick view on that one, how it looks. So dependency inversion would look something like a TTO, some kind of TTO, or like this one that we have some kind of defined interfaces. Same for the employees and employee DTO. I think that will be all. If you have any question, you can reach me out on social media or by LinkedIn. This some suggestion I give it some if switch then new method of assisting classes. Just think before if the class is responsible of that class. Is any reason for changing this class? If I create a new class for what if I create a new class for this one? So think about the interface as well. Does it have too many properties? Can I split into some reusable? This is me, my social media. You can follow me on this site, or if you're more interested about how to become a software developer, you can get this book through Amazon. It's free in some regions. How to become a software developer in 2024 gonna be at the moment is in UK for free in Kindle. Feel free to have a look. Email me if you have any questions. Thanks.
All right. Sound check now. I hope you can hear me now well. Just let me know if it's not. And we are about to start the Q&A session. Right now I see one speaker on my backstage, and I hope more speakers will come join us. Luciano, hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you absolutely great, and you have a great setup. I don't have my setup because I'm on a travel, but and people really experience problems with my sound. Yeah. How are you? Where are you now? What's going on?
I'm good. I'm in Rome right now. So I'm based in Rome. So I'm working for a company based in Rome. So Content.it. So everything is okay. So winter is coming. So
winter is Rome is not something like winter in UK or even north. So no, it's quite good. I always love to visit your places in the winter. Okay. While we are waiting for more speakers, we hope they join this Q&A. I will explain. Yeah, we experience difficulties with internet in Kiev now. Not always because of war. We don't always have great internet. I'm absolutely sorry about that, and you can be absolutely sure that recordings are good, are valid, and you could rewatch if you could not understand some parts of code because of this blurry image a little later once recordings are released. And but anyway, sorry about that. And we should definitely pay more attention to how big the code on the screen of a speaker is, because if even the quality is okay, but once it's in a small window, it's not something like you can easily read. Anyway, it's some space to improve for us, right? We will not lose our not be losing our time now for waiting. I'm not sure. Just let me check what we have in chat and what my team says. Okay. Yes. Well, we can do it together, and it's gonna be fun. So my first question, always, Luciano, my first question is, what about AI? Why nobody mentioned it? It's not the question, will AI replace me or you? It's answered already, but do you use some AI tools during your development? What kind of tools? How often? What do you do there? That's question from me personally.
Yeah, I start with to share my my idea. So I recently start to play a bit with Bard. So it's a Palm work from Google, and I think AI could improve our work, not a real substitution. So we are looking for quality. We are looking for ship best software to our customer. So AI can work with us to avoid some mistakes that you can do during your work, and maybe enhance some in some case with some suggestion. So this is my idea right now.
Okay, cool. And while you're playing with this, what exactly do you actually delegate to it, or you just use it like Smart Wiki or GitHub or whatever?
So recently with Bart and Gerard Sanz, I don't know if you already know Gerard, but he played a lot with Bart, and I think in my case, I'm going to prepare some content to share. I'm going to use AI for generate some graph or to suggest me what's the best way to do it. Maybe I have my idea on doing something, and with AI, we can have a general overview. So also to avoid to miss some key point that you want to share.
All right. Thanks for answering my questions. And yeah, people in the audience, let me know. I'm really interested to hear about your experience with this Copilot thing, ChatGPT, Bard, or any other tool you use that generates code or helps you to. So question is simple. Do you use it often or sometimes or never forget it? Kind of that's a question, and I'm really interested to see your answers. So we have a few questions to you, Luciano, here. I'm not sure which talk is this. Let's try to do it because it's all live, you know. I'd like to ask about how browsers handle those MD files you showed us. I mean, is being rendered HTML or just handle Markdown, maybe otherwise. I'm not sure it's to you, right?
Yes. So I showed how to create a custom page directly using Markdown files. So we are going to create Markdown and use all the syntax of Markdown. That it's really cool, in my opinion. And the compiler is going to create it as a HTML file. So it's the compiler that work for you to generate the HTML file and ship it to the server. So this is the cool stuff on Meta Framework.
All right. Thank you very much. The next question is, thank you for answering. Yes. Luciano, can you share insights into benefits of using AnalogJs and any tips for successful implementation? I guess the whole talk was about that, but maybe some summary of that.
So benefits, lot of benefits. So all the features that I shared in my video is something related to the developer experience, in my opinion. So you have really cool stuff about routing, about how to create dynamic routing, how to use different tool like Markdown and integration with the different CSS framework or reuse component, because it's analog. So on top we have Angular. You can use also Astro. If you want to integrate with different cool stuff that you have today for create pages and performant web application. So you can use also a different integration. And as a tips, mainly we have to focus on web performance. So Lighthouse tool we have inside the browser. We can use a different website that can understand how the website is performant and give you a lot of suggestions. So in my opinion, the successful implementation is give the best experience to the customer. So page that loading fast, SEO for enhance the crawler that scraping your website, and yes, loading image, more faster with the new generation of image that you can use, like WebP in your browser. So ship software, ship web pages that run fast in the browser, even if the customer has bad connection, is priority. So also for my company. So this is the best way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. That's summarized of your talk. Yeah, and the probably last one is this, because all the rest, lots of questions actually from the form we sent out to our audience, and here in two chats for other speakers, but they're not here. Can you explain the specific problems that AnalogJs designed to solve and how it differentiates itself as meta framework? Okay.
Okay, problem that AnalogJs solve is related to the SSR and SSG generation of Angular application. So actually, even if the Angular team is working hard to solve this kind of issue, Analog with Vite.js and Nitro, that it's on top of the meta framework, it's going to solve this kind of issue. So you can generate this page. So without using Angular Universal, for example. Okay, and the difference itself is you are going to use different features inside Analog. So you can do it directly with Angular. So it's on top of Angular, and you can use all the features that Angular give you. So we love Angular, I know. A lot of people love also the new cool stuff that the team introduced with the latest releases. So this is the main point.
Okay, cool. Cool, thank you. And one more question came up here right now. Do you consider as safe using AnalogJs for big solutions development? Do you have cases for it? Is it still fresh framework? Yeah, that's a concern.
That's a good question. Yeah. Safe. We have to separate the safe for security or safe for long-time support. So because of course Analog has a great community and contributors that work on it, and for sure if you have any problem you can write on Discord channel, and maybe Brandon or someone else can support you for an issue. I use it for some personal project that I have already created and shipped. But maybe if I have to, if a customer come today to me and ask me, I have to create a big application with something related to the CEO and performance, maybe could be an option, Analog, but only if the customer agree with this pain point, I think.
All right, thank you. The question was really good. Yeah, these all questions for now. I mean, to you, and thank you for answering.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining and contributing here. I will be waiting for your content about about this AI experience. We have this idea I want to share with you and our audience. I'm not sure, maybe it's for the first time. We have an idea, kind of worldwide championship on generative coding. So we'll have sort of task to create some software, right, or application or whatever, and we'll measure how much time you spend in manual coding against on generating code, actually, right? And measure results and your approach and everything. And we think right now we gather this board and we just brainstorm how could it be, because the idea is to answer the question, if we will be generating all or most of our code in, like, let's say, 5 years or something, how will it be, right? So, and it's an idea to open and watch there what could be, because some brilliant minds, I'm telling you, because our community is 250,000 developers, some brilliant minds send us like examples how they write entire applications. Nobody will do this for commercial development, right? Because lots of questions with that. About legal stuff and supporting all this. But anyway, it happens somewhere there. So we need to pay attention to this, right? What do you think about
that? Maybe I don't have too much experience to answer the question, but in my opinion, in the future, we are going to give all the requirements that the customer share with us to generate application, and we are going to review the code, maybe adjust something or adding integration or limited feature to the application. But in 5 years, I think we have a lot of AI in our daily work, so it's going to change a lot our developer experience.
All right, absolutely. And our community has this, task to research this, how it can be actually, right? Some pros and cons. And here's a question in our chat. Do we have any more junior talks? Actually, yes, we have 2 more after the break. So we taking break. Let me see. Yeah, we have 30 minutes break, and then we'll have 2 more talks. And I remind, if you want to attend tomorrow's talks, tomorrow we will have, let me see, I believe 9 or even 10 talks, quite deep talks from really interesting speakers. Use this promo code. I hope will display. Yeah, here it is, and join there, or ask for scholarship in the chat or any group discount or something. So it's not about to get more money. It's about to let anyone join this this content. Thank you very much, Luciano. Thank you very much to everyone who is watching now today, and thank you for contributing to our speakers. Now it's break for 30 minutes, and then we come back. Okay.
Thank you for
goodbye,
having
Luciano. Maybe I'll be in Rome sometime soon. I'll drop you some line to meet you if you
contact
want.
me. We can take a coffee together.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
And the break.
Oh, hi there, and let's jump into the second block of the junior track of Angular Global Summit 2023 vol.2. And we are opening this block with well-known speaker in Geekle community, Kamil Michalski, who is a front-end developer in AnalogJs. He is also a trainer with more than a decade of experience. Fun fact that he made his first website in his sixth grade, which is still primary school, and was lucky enough to find his passion in such an early age. And he spoke on this event 2 years ago. So become to the stage a person who have taught hundreds of people how to become front-end developers. Kamil, welcome to your magic.
It's a pleasure to be here again as a speaker in Angular Global Summit. My name is Kamil Michalski, and today I would like to tell you a little bit about the component testing and actually which rules we should follow to make this test valuable and what we should avoid. At the beginning, please let me introduce myself. As I said, I'm Kamil Michalski, and I'm a software engineer with over 10 years of experience. During this time, I had the opportunity to work in many smaller and bigger companies, and projects with various technologies, but for sure my main one is Angular. I also been working as a team lead, and I've been building and creating the teams as a team lead. Beside working as a developer, I love to share my knowledge and experience, and because of that, I am a trainer. I train hundreds of people, those who want to start the adventure in IT world. So I teach them how to become a front-end developer, but also um, I had some experience with professional developers teams about good practices in Angular or application testing, and that's why I am here. But today, let's not focus about me. Let's focus about component testing. So at the beginning, I will tell you a little bit about what exactly is the component testing and what are the difference between unit testing and end-to-end testing. And we will talk how we can write a good, variable component testing, which mistakes we should avoid, and which patterns it's good to follow. After that, I will tell you a little bit about the tools, because we have various of tools available at this moment at the market that we can use in our Angular application to perform the component testing. And at the end, we will summarize all of this that we went through during this presentation. So what exactly? Because we have various of definitions when we are talking about the testing, like end-to-end testing, component, unit, integration, dynamic, and many, many more. It would be great to define what exactly is the component testing to have the same understanding. I don't want to open a discussion here about when we should put component testing in the diagrams or in other part of the testing, because depending on how many articles you read and with how many people you talk, you can have a different opinions and different definitions of that. And so I would rather focus to describe what exactly is the component testing. And so when we take a look into the components, we have to remember first that component is usually built from three things. We have a controller, like usually JavaScript, TypeScript, the view structure of the component, and CSS styles. That also somehow can affect the component behavior. So when we take all three together, we can treat them as a unit. Somebody can do this as integration test because we need some environment to render HTML and styles, but using the standard unit testing approach that you know from other language or from other application, checking implementation, we do not fully the component. It's possible to have 100% code coverage, but still not a working component. We can call it unit testing, but with the end-to-end approach, because we want to test it as a user will use it. So what exactly is the component testing? Actually, it's nothing new. It's not like a super medicine that will cure and solve all of the problems in your project, but definitely it's the way or pattern that we should consider and follow while we're creating the modern applications. Since we have framework here like React, Angular, Vue, Quick, Svelte, and many more, all of them have the same concept that allow us to divide our application into block that we call components. So we can build the application using the blocks, and it's giving us the opportunity to test each block of our application. So thanks to that, we can perform component testing. So what is the difference between the end-to-end test? When we take a look, end-to-end testing is exactly its full integration into our application. So we have to run some backend, we have to run our external systems like some external API tools for system authentication, payment systems, extra databases, and so on. So to perform end-to-end tests, in fact, we have to set up all the project and all the application. It's good because we have this end-to-end approach. So thanks to that, we have a realistic user experience testing. We exactly can test in the same way what user will do in our application. Like I visit some URL addresses, check some content, interact with our interface by filling some form, clicking in some buttons, or even moving the elements. So exactly we can test and be sure that our test will cover the things that user will can experience in our application. It also allows us to prepare the integration test. As I said before, we can integrate with the external system, the external API. Also, we have tests with the backend, which we don't have in component testing because in component testing, we only focus on the components. So we don't care that much about the backend and other external systems that are not in our Angular application. Of course, this test also can be written by some QA, a team, or by QA. So sometimes it's better because when somebody different is testing a solution, he has different like point of view. So he can find the different scenarios, different cases that sometimes when we are writing the test, we even don't think about them. Of course, so it's pretty good one, but of course there are some challenges that is good to know. It's more difficult to maintenance because every time something changes in our system, not only our front-end application, we have to maintenance it and be sure that all of the tests are working. Sometimes the different part of application can have some malfunction and our tests will be failing, but everything on the front end will be nice and working, but we will have to spend some time to check what is wrong with the end-to-end test. Also, end-to-end testing requires CI to perform them. And sometimes it's the issue, for example, I was in the project when we had a lot of end-to-end tests, which was good because we didn't have to double check some features, but because that we had so many of them, our CI sometimes didn't work properly. So we had to buy more space, turn on the more powerful, more compute power to perform the test. And the tests were taking a lot of time, sometimes even 30 or 40 minutes. So it was really time consuming. And sometimes we had some issues because of that, because of the CI issues, not because something was wrong with our test, but because something was wrong on the infrastructure side. Testing of specific scenarios may require some additional configuration. It's really a specific case, but you may have this in your application that, let's say, applications uses different configuration for different customer. So if you're doing in the end-to-end test, of course it's possible, but sometimes it's different to, let's say, mock other configuration or change configuration like that. For example, for each user, we will have to perform the same test in case on the end-to-end test. So what is the difference between the component testing? In component testing, they are easy to test in isolation. So we don't have to run a whole system. We can only run our part of application, our component, and we can test only this one. So we can make sure that this part of our application will be working fine without running any external systems. Thanks to that, our tests are definitely faster than the end-to-end, and they are simpler to write them and to write specific scenarios like the given one in the previous slide. For example, with the different configuration, it's way easier to make it. So we don't test the whole application, we're just testing the parts, and then we have some guarantee that they may work together as well. Challenges. Of course, the component testing is not perfect, but because we're not using the external API, so we are not sure that our components, sometimes there may be some issues, like the communication issues or contracts issues between the front end and our API. So in fact, we have to test it anyway end to end. Let's work together. So it's not guaranteed that the entire application will work properly, because of course we can test our components, but we don't test integration. So we are not sure that if we connect everything together, it will work fine. And most of the time they are written by the author of the code. So when we can't predict all of them, we cannot predict all of the scenarios. So sometimes we can just skip some testing scenario and component will not working. Okay, so how to write actually variable test, and why are they so different than unit testing? So we have to think about the components like about the unit, but with the end-to-end approach. So let's give you a real life example. Let's say we have a remote controller to a TV or whatever else. Actually, it's my favorite example. So we have a remote controller and TV. So we have two components here that together are creating some system. But talking about component testing, in this case, we just want to test our remote controller. So we do not care about the external dependencies, which is our TV. And we don't care about the internal implementation of the remote controller. So we do not have to unmount it and check it if all of the electronics inside are connected properly. So we want to test it in the same way as the final user will use it. We want to be sure when the user presses a specific button, it will send specific signal. This is what we want to check. Like when he presses the volume up button, it will dispatch action to volume up. Of course, in the real world, it's difficult to test it without TV, but using component testing tools, we can do that for sure, because we can kind of mock the signal and we can try just check if our component is sending a signal. So this is the most important. We don't care that much what is inside this remote controller. We care how the user can interact with that. So we have to check all of the inputs, which is in our case the buttons, and we have to check all of the outputs that will be sent to the other components. Of course, it's not only about the inputs output that you know from Angular. It may be input as some data from some service that you injecting to your component. You also have to check your component how it react. And the output of your component is also not only the outputs that you know as a property, output is also the template that user can see. So sometimes we have a lot of logic, like if your logic in our components, for example, we're using a lot of directives like ng4, nge, and it may react different, right? So we want to be sure that user will see the data that we should display to him. So also it will be good to check it instead of us checking if the label is equal to label. We can exactly check if the table is rendered or the user will see, let's say, the status bar with the proper class name or something like this. Also, it's good while you are coding, if you have specific requirements regarding to the component, that you can start writing the code with a test, kind of TDD approach. Instead of opening browser, you can just run your test. So it will save a little bit of your time, because you don't have to switch between the IDE and web browser all of the times. Sometimes it's a really good one. What else? We should, as I said before, we should avoid implementation testing. So we don't care that much what is inside the component. Let's talking right now about the Angular component. We don't care that much about the internal component state. So whenever we have something that only components care about, like is selected or something like this, we don't have to check it. At least if user can see it on the template in the final view, we don't have to check if the status changed or something, because it's the internal state that our component use to operate. We don't have to check private component method. So not this trick with the question marks. We only can test our external API and the things that the user really can use in our component. we don't have to check the lifecycle method. So we don't have to write the testing component testing like after ng on init do something and after ng destroy do another thing. No. As well, it depends, but as well, we don't have to test the child component. So we don't have to check if we have some form, we don't have to, inside the form, we have a different components like some state and some inputs, patterns, and so on, or some selectors. We don't have to check if they work properly. Only we care is that when we fill the form, it should work. So we don't care that much about the state of the button that is a child component or even example. For example, we have like some internal table. So only we care about is that user will see some data, but we don't have to check all of the options of the child component. Sometimes, of course, there may be some exceptions that we'll have to do it. It really depends on our component because sometimes we may have a more complicated component that we also, it would be good to check something and that will be passed to the child, like kind of integration test or something like this. It's good to use closed box approach. So the thing what I just said, we testing our component as a closed box, so we don't go inside. Kind of like you can also find the definition as a black box. So we don't care that much what is inside. We only care about the inputs and outputs. What I already said in the previous slide, we care about that how user can interact with that and what data user can provide it and what user can see from this component. Let's go now through a few like common mistakes and good practices while testing your component. So instead of testing component fields, just test inputs. What does it mean? Let me go through my IDE, showing the code. Okay, so now let's talk about the common mistakes and good practices. The first pretty common mistake is that we're testing component fields instead of user input. What does it mean? When you have any properties like label, we can have some status, let's say component that has the one input label. So instead of I can test, just check if the property changed, like component that label is equal to something, we should actually test the input of our component. So instead of just changing this property, we should kind of recreate how this component is reusable, and we can create it in many ways. We can create kind of like test wrapper or something like this, and then provide some data into that we make sure that the connection, when somebody will use our component later on, that when we provide the input, it will work. Also, instead of checking if, I don't know, some text just change as a property, we should check if it's actually the rendered in our component, not just, for example, we have a status that should be displayed in, I don't know, in some batch. We should make sure that this batch is displayed, not only that the property has some value, because sometimes somebody can just forget to put it to template, or we have some template logic, some NGRX directive, and from some reason it's not displayed, that property, that value is passed to the property, to the field. So the tests will not actually giving us the best value. By doing that, we are sure, even we don't have like 100% coverage, sometimes the tests are less a bit better, because when you just testing implementation, you're not testing the full experience of the user. So we can have 100% coverage of our test, but it's not giving us the same as the component testing, because we can cover all of the lines, but when we don't cover, for example, the template or the template logic or some inputs, our component may still not work because of that. So this is really important to remember about that while we're doing the component testing. Another trick is to use data selectors. In many cases, when you're selecting some component or some part of the component, we're using class like CSS classes or IDs. IDs are not that bad, but classes, or we're using HTML tags to select some element to test it later on. Why it's not the best practice? Because we should try to isolate everything. So we have our logic of our component, our styling, and our view. In case when somebody just want to change, I don't know, some style, border, or just background color or something like that, it will change the class name. And it shouldn't affect our test, right? It shouldn't affect the functionality of the component sometimes. But if we're like using the class names as the selectors, then you have to also check if this class name is not used in your test, and you have to spend more time on maintaining this test. While we're using data selectors like data selector or data, the most common is, I think, the data test ID. And then you don't have to care about this, because you know when you're having the data selection component, they refer to only to the testing. So whenever we change some styling or whatever else, we don't have to worry that it will break our test. I think what I said before, we don't have to change test the implementation. So let's say when we have like form component, and inside of that we have some button components or whatever else, we don't have to render all of the stuff that is under it, right? So we don't have to like test whole application. We don't have to provide all of the services, all of the states, and so on. We can just use mocks. We can cut all of the dependencies and test our component installation. Because, for example, when you have some service that is fully tested, we should be sure that when you connect this service with our component, everything will work properly. So sometimes it's just good to mock all of the dependencies instead of like testing component as the part of application. I saw it many of times in our applications that we're providing a lot of modules, a lot of other components declaration into the test of the component, services, and so on. But here we should cut all of these external dependencies and focus only on our component and how the user see it. The thing that I experienced that with one of our projects, that we had too many end-to-end tests comparing to the integration and the unit test. So, and it means we have to remember that end-to-end takes a lot of time to run them, and also they require our CI. So it's important and are more difficult to maintain them. So it's a good way to just keep the like happy box scenarios or kind of smoke test, which are performed by end-to-end test. So they're just checking our main features. And we should have a unit, aka component testing as much as you can. So it's really possible that when we have a lot of component testing, we don't need that much end-to-end testing. So it's really it's really good to remember to have this proportion in your projects. Testing tools. Okay, as I said, we can use many of testing tools. There's a lot of them in the market. We can use the default testing libraries and runners that we have, for example, in Angular, like Jasmine and Karma, or Jest. But also there's many more libraries that are really helpful while writing the tests, because while using the default testing libraries, you have to create kind of tools, extra function, or sometimes like even mocking, like trying to test the input in your component. It may be more difficult than using the library. I really recommend the testing library. This is the name of the library, testing library, because it's available for all of the frameworks. I mean, most of the frameworks, not all of them, because we have so many of them. So it's pretty good. Whatever, I don't know, you have a few projects with different frameworks, it's good that you can have a test written in the same way. So, and testing library is a really light library. It's using Jest. So whenever if you know already the Jest, is not going to be different for you or difficult to write the test in the testing library. We have also ngMocks. This is the library prepared just for Angular. They are pretty similar. They have pretty similar functionalities. Maybe the way how you render something or how to write specific text are different, but also you can achieve the same way. There is few new libraries like Cypress component testing. If you already have some end-to-end test in Cypress, it's good to use the Cypress component testing because it uses exactly the same syntaxes. So whenever you have prepare some utilities function or something like this in your Cypress, you can use them in your component testing as well. And the difference, of course, it doesn't run the whole application as Cypress do. It just run component and all of the dependencies that the component needs to be ran. They're pretty similar to Cypress, the playwright component testing and WebDriver IOTC. Of course, probably we can find more, but I just wanted to list the most common one that I found and that I used in my projects. So yeah, but I really recommend the testing library. You can check it. And it's, as I said, it's not different than the JS. It doesn't require extra configuration if you already use the JS in your project. Only what you have to do is install the npm package. So as you saw, there's many of them. So how to choose the right tool? For sure, we should focus on the technology stack. Depends which technology you use. For example, if somebody is writing the tests in the different languages, you can think about the prayer or something like this. Team's preferences, let's say you can have an internal discussion about that. That one person may like just library, the testing library, and another one the NGMOX or something like this. State of the code. Well, we had it in my previous project that a lot of things was written in the NGMOX, so there was no sense to provide any new libraries or change it because we actually could achieve everything what we wanted using the NGMOX, so we decided to continue with the NGMOX, so there was no need to change it. And application specificity. Sometimes you have like prepare some extra configuration, and in our case, for example, Cypress component testing was good for that as well because I was able to mock some external configuration thanks to that wasn't that easy to make it in using default tools and libraries like just so testing libraries. So it really depends. It really depends on your stack, your team's preferences, and you have to take a look at your project and actually decide what is the best for you because here the tools are not that different. They are not faster or slower or something like this. If they do, it's really slight difference. So you have to really adjust the tool which is the best for your project and for your team. All right, we talked a lot about the variable component tests. Let's do like a short summary what we should remember from this presentation. So first, test component how user uses. Remember the example of the remote controller. We just want to test inputs and outputs, what user can press, what user can provide, what user can see as the output. Avoid the testing the implementation, so we are not focusing on the implementation. We're focusing only on about our component. Remember about the proper proportion. So we want to have a lot of component or unit testing, and we just want to cover the specific functionalities, smoke test by using end-to-end. And the thing what I just said, the selection of the testing tools can depend on the technology stack, team's preference, state of application code, and the business specification. So it really depends on your project, and you have to choose by yourself which one will fit the best for you and for your team. That's it. Thank you very much. And if you have more questions, you can write me an email or send me a message on the LinkedIn. I will be happy to answer for that. Thank you guys for your time. Take care.
Thank you, Kamil, for delivering this talk. It was interesting for us, insightful. And let's jump into the next topic, which is going to be covered by Head of Developer Relations in Axeler, Stefan Fluin, who is backstage. Stefan, the stage is yours. Welcome.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. If the stage is mine, I'll go ahead and start presenting my screen here. As soon as everybody can see, hopefully we will get some messages in the chat here. I saw in the last, in the chat as well for some of the other talks that the audio wasn't good. Can people hear me? If you can hear me, please definitely put something in the chat. I'm happy to take messages throughout the talk, although we will be saving any questions and answers until the next session.
Great. So the picture is great. Sound is good. Slides are live. Thank you, Stefan.
Awesome. So I want everyone to picture a much younger Stephen. So the year was 2016, and I was sitting there at Google in Mountain View, California, where I had just joined Google, and it was my first week on the Angular team. And when you join Google, you actually get to wear this really funny hat with like a little spinner on the top. And I was really excited about Angular. I'd been using AngularJS for a long time. I was a Google developer expert at the time, and I was just so excited to be becoming part of this team that was creating this really, really important technology across the web platform. And in that first week, I was learning Angular version 2 at the time, as it was called. And so I was trying to get up to speed on the latest developments as the team marched inevitably towards that big 2.0.0 release in 2016. And as part of that first week on the team, one of the first things that I ended up seeing was this document called Understanding NG Module, which is a giant document. It's around 19 pages long that was written to explain all of the different reasons that we need modules, and that you cannot have a system in Angular that is entirely based on the component structure. As I think we've now all seen, that this is definitely not the only way of doing things. It is definitely possible to build Angular apps and build a system to build Angular itself in a way that does not require modules. I just think it's so funny thinking back to this history, thinking back to the way that we thought things had to be, and then like how much we've learned to do better than that. And so if you're curious on this relic of history, this 19-page document on all the reasons you need modules and things like that, I put it up on bit.ly/ng module. And so what I am here today to talk about is standalone components. So this is one of the big changes that's happening across Angular, and there's a lot of buzz and there's a lot of excitement about it. And I want to share a few tips and tricks. This is something you're looking at doing, taking advantage of, as well as share some of my experiences. And I'll even try and do a little bit of a demo today. So what are we going to do? First, we're going to talk a little bit about how standalone components are in many ways the future of Angular. We're going to talk a little bit about the mental model that you need to be shifting from one way to the other. And then we'll actually try and talk through a practical transition and some of the things you might run into as a developer. So let's start off talking a little about the idea of standalone components as the future. And really, to understand the future, I think we always have to understand the past. And so if we go back about a year and a half, we saw that version 14 came out. And in 14, something very important happened is they introduced this standalone component capability, and they introduced it as a developer preview. So they weren't sure of the finalized APIs. They didn't want people to rely on it, but it started becoming available and people could get excited. People could start experimenting. Fast forward about a year and you had Angular version 16, where it actually exited preview. So now standalone components are a standardized part of Angular. It's going to be supported by the deprecation policy. All of those things as part of long-term support. And so Angular has standalone components now as this capability that all developers can rely on. But it's going a little bit further than that, because if you look at, for example, version 17, it is actually going to end up being the default. And so if you create a new project in the latest version 17, this upcoming preview release, what you're going to find is that right now they are planning on shipping standalone components by default for every new project. And so this is really a cascade that I talked about a lot when I was on the team, where you move from making a feature, you have an idea, and then you do a proof of concept, and then you make it possible for developers to try something, and then you make it easy for developers to try something. That was around the version 16, and then you make it the default, and then you make it the kind of universal standard. And so while the team hasn't made any comments about deprecating NG modules or removing them, that right now throughout the documentation it's called optional NG modules, we can see that they're definitely pushing developers to use this, and they're kind of expecting, and what they've heard from a lot of developers is that they want to be using this as the default, as the standard across their Angular applications. And so one of the things that I really want to drive home here is that being out of date in any technology stack really sucks. And this is especially true in Angular, where if you have, if you're stuck on Angular version 7, 9, 12, your app is going to keep working, right? We have this web, it is going to keep working. Browsers do not change that fundamentally very often. But at the same time, as a developer, any software that is alive, this can create a really terrible experience, right? You're not going to get any of the cool new features as a developer. The standards, the ways that we should be writing our application are going to evolve over time. And so like I do a lot of going back and doing archaeology to try and bring applications from 2.0, 4.0, 5.0, 6.0, so on, forward into the future. And while NPM is immutable, like your application should theoretically keep working, we end up having changes to the node version. We end up having changes to TypeScript version. And these things are not, while they are all immutable, you can go back. It's not always clear what versions you should be using with which. There's no clear guide. It's all kind of based on the timeline and the history that existed at that point. And so the older your application gets, the more work it's going to be for you to do anything in your code base, right? Because the modern tool chain continues to evolve. We end up getting better applications. We continue to evolve as developers. And so by adapting to the latest best practices, you're going to find that code samples are going to match better. The things that you are building are going to be better liked by other developers. It's going to be easier to bring new people onto your project, all these sorts of things, because we watch these standards and these best practices evolve over time. And so I ask everyone, please see this as part of the future and then kind of understand it's going to evolve. But at the same time, this is going to be a slow thing. This is not modules are going away in 17, modules are going away in 18. Like the team has not said anything about that, or at least that I've seen. And ecosystems are very slow. And so we are going to have a long period, like 2 to 3 to 5 years, where video tutorials are going to be out of date. Consultancies are still using old standards and best practices. When you search for a problem in Angular, you're going to find a blog post that's not using standalone components. And we have this huge, heavy burden of institutionalized knowledge that we're going to be carrying with us, where it's going to take years for every individual to know about these changes. And so by being an early adopter, but still acknowledging that you're going to live in this cross-compatible world, we can be more successful. And this is also true for libraries, where even when you're importing a library like in your material, historically, that has still been done by ng modules. And so it's going to be a while until all the libraries, all the ecosystem is updated and that we are all on this new space. So don't worry about the speed, but this I do feel like there's an inevitability for the Angular ecosystem, just based on the response that I've been seeing from developers. There is this concept that I always had when I was on the Angular team called the breaking budget. It's or the budget of how much you can break the user's universe in each release. And basically the math is every single application that's ever been written using Angular up to date used to have ng modules, right? Before version 16, every single application had ng modules. And now we're thinking about a world where that's not required and you can move to an application that has no ng modules. And that is a huge shift. As one of the biggest breaking changes to Angular if they ever decide to deprecate ng modules, which I hope they don't do for a very, very long time. And so they have to think about this idea of how do we spend our ability to break users' code. And you only have a little bit of that budget every year because of this slow change in ecosystem. And so I think that the deprecation is a ways out. So when you want to understand what a standalone component is, here is one of the most simple ones you can imagine. So you've got a component decorator there. And now we've added a property that says standalone true. So we're saying that this should be a standalone component. We've got a set of imports. So these are now our ability to pull in directives, pipes, components, all those sorts of things. And we can even add our own providers. So before standalone components, you could not add imports and providers to a component. They were also scoped somewhere else. But now that you have standalone components, then now that components can be the building block of your Angular application, these are the kind of things that you're going to be seeing added to your app. And one thing you're not going to see is you're not going to see declarations anymore. So as you move to standalone components, your ng module are going to have all of their declarations removed, and then eventually you're going to see your ng models or modules removed. So this is one of the first things, if you're trying to make the transition, is make sure that you don't have a component that is both being declared and standalone. And they've got great tooling that will warn you about this. And so one of the questions is always about compatibility. So like, do I have to do this big bang? Do I have to change my entire code base all at once? And the answer is absolutely not. You can change even a single component at a time if you want. What you're going to see is fantastic compatibility. So if you have an ng module, you can actually import a component, and then that component becomes available to the entire module, and vice versa. If you have a component, you can import a module, just like you've been doing for a long, long time. So if you have shared services, all those sorts of things, those can be imported at the component layer, and then it'll be handled by the injector. So the middle section is relatively quick here, but I want to really just briefly cover the mental model for how standalone components work, and really this kind of fundamental building block of modules that we've been relying on for so long. What should you be doing instead? And so the first part of this is really thinking about before. So two of the reasons that we had NG modules, or the way that we use them on a day-to-day basis, was around lazy loading boundaries and shared services. So we saw this all the time, where in the router you'd have this load children command. This is an example from like a bunch of my code projects. I would import a module, and then I would pass the control to that module. I'd say, hey, here's the module that you want to load. And what was really nice is then it would go and it would fetch that module. It'd get built as a kind of unit of compilation, that module. It could have its own lazy loaded routes, and it had this really beautiful kind of nesting at the module level. And then you could even trace that through into like lazy loading in the command line, or in the Chrome network tab. You can see each of those modules being loaded. And so, and then the other half of this is the idea of shared services, where I would often do this kind of import module for root. I'd give it some sort of initialization. I did this with Firebase. I did this with other services. And so you'd have a module where a service was configured, that injector was configured at that level, and then all of the components that existed in that module could rely on that. And so before, we were using modules for organization, and the shift now is, instead of using modules for organization, we're going to be using the router. And so you actually have these exact same properties, and they look very, very similar as well. So on the routing side of things, you've got the same load children, but now instead of even having to resolve to the module, if you're using a default export, you don't even have to do that. Right? You can just set a routes file. So this is just a JSON configuration of URL segments and paths. And so from there, what you can do is, if you do export default, it will come out directly, and you don't even have to do the thenning. What will happen is the router will notice that that is a lazy loaded routes configuration. It will do the thenning for you and like listen for the import promise. So that dynamic resolution of that import. And then on the shared services side of things, you're doing a very similar mental shift, where you're moving from the module level to the routing level, but we can do this now directly in the router. So we actually have new capabilities within the router, where you can create providers on any individual route. And then what will happen is that service will actually create an injector that is then available to all the components that are loaded by the router. And so this is a really kind of perfect mental parallel between what we were doing with modules before and what we're going to be doing with the router now. And so the other half of this mental model shift that you want is, before, you would often kind of define all of these things that I might need. And so what I ended up seeing in my code was that I would have NG module imports of like 40 or 50 things. I'd pull in all of the things that any of my components in that module needed, whether that was services, whether that was components, directives, etc. And then one of the most common things I was pulling in was things like common module. But the best practice is now kind of shifted with standalone components, where, because instead of pulling it into this kind of shared context of a module, and then like forcing all of that to be loaded at the same time, we're letting the build tooling do a little bit more of that work. We're instead importing exactly what you need. And so you'll see a component where, instead of importing the common module and having this list of 50 different imports, I'm just going to be pulling in the exact things I need. So you can actually pull in like ngIf or the async pipe or all these different capabilities of Angular. You pull it in only in the components you need it, and you'll have this perfect corollary between what you're doing in your template and the imports of that component. And so with these two mental model shifts, I think everyone's kind of actually set up to go and do this transition to standalone components. And so let's go ahead and talk about what this transition looks like in a very, very practical sense. And so the first thing I want to point people to is the Angular.io website. There is a fantastic guide on standalone components. It talks to you about how to do mixed loading. You want to combine modules and components as part of a partial transition. It covers that one. You want to cover what the API looks like of a standalone component. It covers that, all those things. But I don't want to go and just spend all my time on that docs page. So you can definitely go check that out on your own. And so instead, what I want to do is I want to show you a very important CLI command. And it is ngGenerate @angular/core:standalone. So what the Angular team has done is they've hooked into this capability schematics to do code modifications. Because we're all writing TypeScript, because we're all writing this very parsable, understandable JavaScript that, like, we can do AST parsing of your TypeScript, they can actually do most of the heavy lifting when it comes to migrating your code over to standalone components. And so what I want to do is I actually want to kind of show off this command, show off some of the things about it in a second here. But when you call this command, you're going to get a little prompt, and that prompt gives you three options. You can convert all your components, directives, etc. you can remove the unnecessary ng modules, and you can bootstrap the application. And so what they've done is they've designed it as this command that you're going to run multiple times. And so simultaneously is this hyper intelligent tool that I've actually used to convert several very large code bases, as we'll actually see in a little bit. But at the same time, it kind of feels a little bit like a blunt weapon where you've got this club and you just keep banging it with the same CLI commands over and over until it does what you want it to do. So we've got this very interesting juxtaposition of this super sophisticated tool that is also just kind of being called repeatedly. So one of the things I say about brute force, because like you're hammering with this club, is if brute force doesn't work, you're just not using enough. And so we will see how we kind of need to call this multiple times. But what I want to do now is I want to dive actually into a demo of a real code base and see what this upgrade feels like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to a conference app. So I help organize this event called DevFest MN. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at the source code for that page real quick. Oops, here we go. So very simple website. This is a Angular version 16 application. And what we'll see here is we've got a relatively complicated app, right? This app has been around for years. It's got a lot of cruft. It's got lazy loaded admin module, lazy loaded content module. We've got modules all over the place. This code should look relatively familiar for anyone that's done very much in Angular, where you've got paths, you've got components. And then if I go all the way back to our app module, everything is being loaded by the router lazily, as we're kind of supposed to be doing across our application, where we're taking the path match for blank and we're loading the home module. Anything else, we're doing a test that says it's marketing content, and we're loading the content module, and so on and so on. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this code base and I'm going to use that standardized tool. So you can see we've got yarn start here, ng serve here, and then I'm going to run this command ng generate at angular/core:standalone. And what we're going to do is we're going to choose the first option. We're going to convert all components, directives, and pipes to standalone. And then which path do I want to migrate? So I can migrate just a subset of my application at a single time if I wanted to, but I'm just going to do the whole thing big bang style. And so you can see it has made a lot of applications, and it's saying, hey, it finished, but you should please manually verify. And we can actually see in the background here, the application has updated and things still work, which is generally a good sign, right? Like when my application continues working, I can click on links and so on. So that rebuild was successful. And now what I'm going to do is I want to show you kind of some of the changes in the code. And so if we start in this app module, you're going to notice that things actually haven't changed that much, right? I'm still using the router to load those modules, but you're going to notice that in the code that's changed here, almost all of my components and modules have been touched in some way. And so if we look, for example, at our, let's go to the sponsor component. So this is just a page that's for sponsors. It's like, hey, if you want to sponsor this event, here's information about it. And you can see it's now, instead of being part of this ambient module that's pulling in the directive, it now has direct access to the directive, and it is being told it is a standalone component. And if you look at a more complicated component, you're going to see in more imports that aren't coming from the module, they're coming directly in, and you're going to see this standalone true. And so if we go back to the module that some of these things belong to, such as the content module, you're going to notice our declarations has completely disappeared. So this module is not actually now owning the compilation of any of these components. Instead, it is importing these in order to use the router. And so that was the first step. So now almost all of the components in our application are now standalone components. And so what we're going to do now is we can go ahead and run this command again. And we're going to give it the second option now. So I'm going to remove unnecessary module classes. We'll migrate the entire app project again. And in this case, we were using the routing config, and so it actually wasn't able to automatically migrate all of our modules. And so you looked at this admin module, it was owning the routing, and so it doesn't know how to migrate that into a routes, but we'll take a look at that in a second. And then we can actually even do the third step here, and we will go ahead and bootstrap the application using these standalone APIs. And so here is where we're actually going to see the main.ts file of our application is going to be modified, where instead of bootstrapping into the app module, we're going to just be using this bootstrap application, and it's going to be given the app component. So now our app component has finally been converted into a standalone component itself. You can see it's pulling in the ngIf and the a directive directly. And then there it is. And so the change here is we've moved from platform browser dynamic bootstrap module into bootstrap application, and then we're giving it all of these providers. So we're both importing providers from other modules, as well as providing animations and providing router directly as part of the bootstrap, so that those are available when the component app component initializes. And so the last thing that I want to show here, in order to actually just help you visualize what it's like to transition application, is I actually want to do one more step towards this actually being a routed application instead of a module application. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the content module here. And so as you can see, if you remember, we removed the declarations and we added them all as imports. And so I'm going to pull it up here, not as a diff, and we'll just pull up the content module. And so if I wanted to turn this from a ng module based route into the kind of the new style routing, what I can do is I can just say export const content routes. You can call it whatever you want. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this entire list out of the ng module, paste it here. And then what I'm going to go back is I'm going to go back to my app.module. So I won't do all of the routing at this point. So this is actually not even used anymore. We've eliminated the app module. You can just delete that function because it's not required anymore. And we're going to find in our main TS, we've got our load children where we're loading the content module. And so instead of lazily loading the content module, I'm going to say m.content routes. And that should be it. So what we've done again, there's one bug, I think I recall. It did not properly convert from this is marketing content function into an inline function. I don't know why that is, but you can just change that by make this an actual inline function so that we can use that as part of the routing config. So we're taking a URL, we're doing a test on it, and then determining whether or not we need to lazily load that module. So if we look at our content module, it's basically empty now. So like no one's calling this ng module. I can just delete that. No one's calling any of these imports. So it's much simpler. And then I can even go so far as instead of calling it content.module, I'm going to rename it and just call it content.routes. So now in our main.ts, we should be importing content.routes and then loading the routes. And so you can see here, we're no longer using the module for the hierarchy and organization application. We're using the routing. And so if our rebuild has been successful here, which should be, it says it's sealing right now. So in just a mere moment, I might kill this and restart it. We should see that all of our modules are lazy chunks now, but instead of coming from the module, it's coming from the router. And so just instead of using this Angular native primitives of modules, we're actually using just basic pure JavaScript. This is just pure JavaScript where you've got this concept of dynamic import that the bundler knows, hey, now I need to go find all the dependencies of this code, put it in a module, and then make it available for the world. So in just a moment, we should see this bundled. If not, we'll just kind of move on. Here we go. So we can see all these lazy loaded modules, and the magic here is now instead of our app content modules, we've got our app content routes, and then we should be able to go here. Let's go home first, refresh the application, and now we should be able to click on sponsor, which is a content route, and everything works exactly the same. And you can even see this in the developer tools that when we load this route, we, instead of loading the module for that route, we should be loading the content bundle. So everything worked. Our application is migrated. You can see that we can kind of start deleting all these old modules or converting them into routes files, which is what I've done. And now I just need to do that for all the lazy loaded routes in my application, which should take about 10 minutes, to be honest. And I am done. I've been successful in my transition from my application fully ng modularized from a very legacy, very large code base into a standalone component universe. So we've been successful with our demo. Hooray! So to summarize and really bring us to a close, I do believe that standalone components are the future. I think this is the standard that Angular developers are going to adopt. This is going to be the best practice. And within, I don't know, a year or 2 years, if you are writing new code or working on an actively maintained project and it is not on standalone components, your code will be looked at as a little bit out of date. And so definitely continue to think about this as adopting either now or soon if you want to keep your application fresh and up to date, just like we do with every new version of Angular. This is a new best practice that people really should adopt. And the last piece is just use the CLI, right? Like you saw, I took a huge code base. I migrated 50 files over in a matter of like 5-10 minutes, in just like a brief live demo here, which usually is a very scary thing. But we've made a dramatic architecture change to our application, and it was okay. Everything just worked, and it was kind of magical. So I want everyone out there to have that experience. And if you don't have that experience, you should let the Angular team know, because they always want to go and fix those sorts of things. So that was going to be it for my talk. Thank you so much. And if you have any feedback about the session, I would love to hear it. I've got both a survey bit.ly link there, as well as a QR code that you can scan if you want to give me any sort of feedback. But again, standalone components, they're definitely going to be the future of Angular, and come along with us.
Thank you, Steven. Thank you for this talk. It was great. It was really insightful for us. And now I'm going to remove the slides from the stage. Yes. So now we can jump into the Q&A. And also we have another amazing speaker from this blog. Hi, Kamil. Thanks for joining the Q&A session.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Glad to hear that. So the first question from the chat is for Steven. Let me put it on the banner. So doesn't the fact that we have to import the dependency modules every time we use a new standalone components decrease performance?
No, so there should be absolutely no runtime performance implications of this, or runtime or loading performance. If you think about what's happening under the hood, is the Angular compiler was always taking your components and actually compiling them into this kind of intermediate JavaScript, where it was resolving the component or resolving all those dependencies and calling that code anyway. And so now, instead of resolving it back out by the module, it's resolving it directly in the component itself. And so if you look at the actual JavaScript that's loading in the browser and then running, it actually looks very similar. It's just kind of removing that indirection. And so what I found is that, for example, bundle sizes don't really change at all. And so importing every time we use it is not actually the kind of mental model. The import is just telling the TypeScript and the virtual machine where that code is. And so you're not dynamically loading that JavaScript every time. Like the bundler is very smart. Like anytime you, for example, if you're navigating to a lazy loaded route, and this hasn't changed with what we had in NG modules, it's going to be cached. It's going to be available. Like the overall loading architecture hasn't changed, just the like where the pointer points in memory, which is not a huge change.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for answer. And next question. Actually, if Kamil or Steven, do you have something to add to the questions I raised? You can answer both. We like to do format of discussion during Q&A sessions, so you are very welcome to share your thoughts. So next question is, how is it to mitigate unit tests for standalone components?
Sure. Yeah. So that is one part of the story that I skipped over a little bit. So it is a little bit harder to migrate unit tests. So the Angular team has this great tooling to kind of do these automatic migrations. Due to the nature of how tests are often written, that is a little bit harder, right? Like where people are mocking modules, mocking imports, all those sorts of things. So all of those things change a little bit. But if you just look at that Angular.io/guide/standalone components, they actually talk a little bit about the process of doing tests. So it is not going to be as flawless and as simple to migrate your unit tests, but it is still pretty easy. Like I wouldn't categorize it as hard. But if we, for example, went back and tried to I have very simple tests on those 48 components, and so they would probably be migrated perfectly. But if you have very complicated tests, like you can do anything in testing, right? You can fake an entire universe. And so if you're faking an entire universe, you're going to have to do a bunch of work to migrate, or some work to migrate. I mean, it's not, again, the components are the same. It's just where you're getting everything from that's changed. So you'll have to do a little bit of work there. So it is more work, but it's still definitely achievable.
Yeah, I totally agree. With that. It wouldn't be that hard to do it. We don't change unit test by itself. Only we have to care about this configuration of the test. So all of the importing of the modules that we don't have in the standalone components, that can be challenging. But the unit test by itself sometimes should work after that, so we don't have to change the test cases by itself. Only the things that we have to focus on are actually the configuration of our test. But as I said, it shouldn't. Yeah, go ahead.
In the long term, it should actually be easier because components are more self-contained now. And so like theoretically, it shouldn't be much easier to actually test standalone components in the long term because you don't have to like fabricate this entire like injector tree of the application.
That's true. That's true. Also, you don't have to import all of the modules that are already included into the components. So as we have to do right now in some environment configuration, why we don't use the standalone components.
Ambient dependencies that like what you had from ng modules are not actually a good thing because like you have to know, it's very specific to know where something like where a symbol came from. So like you've got this directive that's like 6 modules over, where did that come from? Whereas now we're being very directive. Every component just says, hey, here's what I need.
Yeah, well said.
Great answer. Now we have a full picture. Thank you. And the next question is not addressed to anyone as well. What specific testing strategies or tools do you recommend for Angular applications?
Actually, it's a difficult question because it really depends on the type of application. Sometimes some tests may be better fitting for this type of application, and sometimes we'll have consider some end-to-end testing, or maybe just the unit testing or the component testing is not enough for our application. It really depends on that. So we have to rely on that what we need was how is the business domain of our application. It really depends on that. So I don't have like the best strategy or tool that you can use for any Angular application.
Yeah, I love the it depends answer. Like if you look across all the applications I've maintained, like I use very different testing strategies just based on the needs of the project, right? Like I've got sample throwaway code where I don't test, and then I've got projects that are like legacy that they're like I still have Protractor kind of hammered in there, and then you've got nice new projects that are using Jest and Cypress and all these sorts of things.
I see. Thank you for the answer. Junior experts actually to gain the full picture and know what to pay attention to when they start working. So I guess that's it for this block. No more questions. Thank you for answering. Thank you for joining us live. Thank you to delivering this content. It was insightful, it was useful, and it was my pleasure to cooperate with you. Bye.
All right, thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And that's it. That was the final block of air raid siren in Ukraine. So that was the final block of Angular Global Summit 2023 second edition junior track. So if you haven't got your ticket yet for the senior part, which is going to happen tomorrow, please, you can still get it. Here you can see a promo code for the discount. So join us. We will have 10 more amazing topics, amazing speakers. If you want to dive deeper, join us tomorrow. Thank you. Have a great day ahead and see you tomorrow. Bye.